Hello, this is Alex Kipp from the multi-million-dollar studios of the New York City Conflicts of Interest Board, also known as my office. We are here to conduct a training especially for you, especially at Snow School on Chapter 68 of the City Charter, which is the New York City Conflicts of Interest Law. Why? Because you're supposed to get training in it once every 2 years, and this counts as that. This video is going to be about 10 minutes long. I'm going to cover 10 different topics of about 1 minute each, and then we'll be done. Sound good? Let's go. Unit. The Conflict of Interest Law is administered and interpreted by the New York City Conflicts of Interest Board, COIB. That's where I work. We got 3 different things we do that I want to talk to you about today. We've got a training unit. That's my unit. I am the director of the massive training army of 3 people. What does training look like? Like this. What kind of question is that? The second unit is the advice unit. That's the most important unit. All day, every day, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. The legal advice unit is answering for free, confidentially, one-on-one questions that you and me, public servants who work for the city of New York, have about how to comply with this conflict of interest law. We answer questions on all kinds of stuff like outside jobs, starting a business, political activity, post-employment restrictions, volunteering, just to name a few topics. Now, remember, though, calling for advice in life, not just in conflict of interest. When should I be calling for the advice? Before I do the thing, because if I do something bad and then I ask for advice on it, that's not advice. That's a confession. And that could also lead to enforcement. Allegations of violations can lead to investigations. Investigations can lead to charges. Charges can lead to penalties. A civil penalty of up to $25,000 is what I could get for 1 violation of the New York City Conflicts of Interest Law. A violation could also bring disciplinary charges from my agency, things like suspension, demotion, termination, or could even bring criminal prosecution by a local district attorney's office. Very rarely. Let's get to those topics. Misuse of position. At its core, the conflict of interest law is all about misuse of position for the benefit of oneself or an associate. To misuse city position for a personal benefit is what we refer to in legal circles as a no-no. But it's not just misuse of position, it's any use of position. Anytime a public servant takes an official action that directly benefits themselves or an associate, or anytime a public servant uses their government power to get a benefit for themselves or an associate, you're going to have conflict of interest questions and maybe even a conflict of interest violation. So, for example, let's say my brother needed a job and there was an opening at my agency. If I use my city position to get a job for my brother he doesn't deserve, that's misuse of position. But it's also misuse of position if he's perfect for the job. If he's the best qualified for the job, I still can't recommend him. I can't hire him. I can't refer him, because to do so would be to take an official action to help my brother's job prospects at my agency. So, let's look at a couple of sanitation examples. Here's the first one. 2 sanitation workers were passing out business cards for their private carding service to homeowners on their Queens collection route, trying to drum up more business. That's misuse of position because they're soliciting private business from people on the collection route. Those 2 guys were suspended for 9 days. Here's another example. A sanitation supervisor solicited and accepted a small loan from a subordinate. That's a misuse of position, and that person was suspended for 5 days and fined $250, and they had to pay back the loan. Taking any action with DSNY stuff or DSNY position in order to get oneself a personal benefit or a benefit for one's close relative or someone with whom you have a financial relationship is to be avoided. Outside jobs. All outside work and money-making activity has to be approved by the sanitation department. What do I mean by work? I mean activities that you could make money at, like carpentry, plumbing, teaching, electrician, driving an Uber, Twitch streaming, Avon, Amway, Herbalife, motivational speaking, fitness coaching, and working at McDonald's are all things you could make money at, and that is not an exhaustive list. What do I mean by outside? I mean not the sanitation department. How do I get approval? You fill out the DSM 1900. What's that? It's a form. Where do you get it? From your supervisor. Who's your supervisor? How should I know? Don't get caught up on where it is, when it is, what it is. All outside jobs and money-making activities have to be approved by the sanitation department. Construction, check. Construction in New Jersey, check. Construction of moon bases on the moon, check. Construction of virtual houses for real-world idiots who actually bought real estate in the metaverse, check. City time and city resources. When you get your approval for your outside job from the Department of Sanitation, they will probably remind you to refrain or steer clear from using any amount of sanitation resources in furtherance of that outside job. Don't do it on the clock. Don't do it with a sanitation truck or a sanitation computer. Any amount of city time or city resources in pursuit of an outside job, political activity, or some kind of money-making activity, even one sheet of paper, even one telephone call, is a violation of the law. Here's an example. A sanitation worker was suspended for 15 days because he was selling DSNY merch out of the back of his car while clocked in on his sanitation shift in front of the sanitation garage. But beyond using sanitation time and resources for an outside job, it's also a violation to use DSNY equipment, tools, vehicles, fuel, other stuff for any personal benefit. And that brings us to trucks. Occasionally, people have succumbed to the temptation to use a sanitation truck for a personal benefit. Those people have been fined. Here's an example. A sanitation worker used a sanitation truck to haul trade waste from his parents' house. He was fined $3,000. Another sanitation worker had a second job working as a security director, and he did that work while he was clocked in at sanitation, and he did it with a sanitation car. He was suspended for 30 days. Political activities. You want to be politically active? You want to volunteer for the campaign, write checks, get out the vote? All perfectly fine under the conflict of interest law. But don't do it on city time or with city resources. I think you can start to see a theme developing here. And supervisors are not allowed to ask any subordinate, anybody below them in the chain of command, to get involved in any kind of political activity. Your boss tells you to support a campaign to get somebody elected, violation. Your boss asks you nicely to do the same, violation. Your boss asks you to do it in the garage while you're clocked in, violation. Your boss waits and then asks you at the bar on Friday night after you're clocked out, violation. Superior subordinate financial activity. Superiors and subordinates are prohibited from entering into any financial relationship. And consider those terms broadly. Financial relationship is anything on this non-exhaustive list. Also, a superior is not just your direct supervisor, but it's anybody who has the power to affect the terms and conditions of your employment. Can my boss hit me up for a loan? No. Can my boss lend money to me? No. Can my boss sell me a car or a house or an ultra-rare collection of Star Wars trading cards? No. Also, what are you, 8? What is allowed? A small transaction of up to $25 between a superior and subordinate is allowed. Example, if you forget your wallet, could your boss lend you $25 till tomorrow, then you pay that boss back? Yes. Could it work the other way? Like if your boss forgot their wallet, could you lend them $25 till tomorrow? Well, technically, yes, but the problem is for you to know that your boss needed that $25, you would have to be because the moment that your boss comes up to you and says, hey, I need $25 till tomorrow, that's a misuse of position. What else is allowed? Coffee club, bagel club, vending machine, shared expenses for a party, carpool, all okay as long as each public servant participating pays a fair proportion of the expenses for the activity. Here's an enforcement example. A sanitation supervisor was also a real estate agent, and he showed a house to his boss, a deputy chief. The deputy chief bought the house, and as a result, that sanitation supervisor got a $2,000 commission for the sale of the house. Both those individuals were fined $1,500. Post-employment. In most places, when you leave a government job, there are certain revolving door restrictions you got to observe. NYC is no exception to that. Now, they're all listed here, but the one that we've got to focus on is the 1-year post-employment appearance ban. And what it says is for 1 year after leaving government service, you can't call, write, or go to meetings with your former agency served. So, for example, could you leave the sanitation department and go work for waste management? Absolutely, you could. You could do that tomorrow. But for 1 year at waste management, you couldn't call, write, go to meetings with sanitation personnel in any borough. You got to wait a year to do that. In general, when you're thinking of transitioning out of public service, that's probably a good time to go onto our website and check out our post-employment materials. And if those raise any questions, you can give us a call for free, confidential legal advice. Volunteering. Do you need permission to volunteer for some sort of not-for-profit, like some kind of charity? Well, no, volunteering isn't treated like an outside job, unless, of course, you're being paid to do that. And then guess what? It's not volunteering, it's an outside job. So then you got to fill out the DSM 1900. But let's assume that it is really just volunteering. Then the rules are simple. Don't do it on the clock. Don't do it with city resources. Don't do anything in the not-for-profit that's going to put you in contact with the sanitation department on the not-for-profit's behalf. But if your volunteering does start to feel like an outside job, either because your volunteer work generates certain ethical or professional or legal obligations to the not-for-profit, like, say, sitting on the not-for-profit's board or acting as their attorney or being their grant writer or getting paid by them, then you're going to want to fill out the DSM 1900. What's that? It's a form. Where do you get it? Your supervisor. Who's your supervisor? Still don't know. And let's just do a little reminder about gifts. Accepting gifts from members of the public. Don't take them. Think that about covers it. Accepting anything from anybody on the route is over the line and is to be avoided. Here's an enforcement example. 2 sanitation workers solicited $10 tips from a Queens homeowner whose garbage they handled. They were fired and fined $2,000. Also, superiors are not allowed to accept anything more than token value gifts, think $10 or less, from subordinates or groups of subordinates, except on a significant life event. I think a once-in-a-life event, like a wedding, the retirement, divorce, right? Every divorce is special, but not on these annually recurring things, not a holiday, birthday, not boss's day, whatever that is. There's no such thing, really, because guess what? If you're the boss, every day is boss's day. And that about does it. Now, how do you get a hold of us if you've got a question? Well, if you're nostalgic for the 20th century, you can use that telephone number there, and you can call us 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and talk to us that way. If you're even more anachronistic, you could write us a letter. You're weird. Who writes letters these days? But you could do it. Or if you want, you can log on to our website. On the home page, there's a button that says Get Legal Advice and contact us that way. I think it's fair to say that in your sanitation career, conflict of interest is not the most important thing that you should be thinking about, and that's probably as it should be. But when you do get a conflict of interest question and you want a little peace of mind, you should remember that we exist and we are here to walk you through it. Thank you for watching today. Happy Snow Day.